Hello everyone, I'm Mike DeAngelo with That's Entertainment, and this is your Lost Gems review of Shadow of the Colossus by Team Ico. If someone told you to make an adventure game without towns or dungeons or NPCs to learn various bits of the world's mysterious background, you'd probably laugh at them. You'd likely be rolling around on the floor once they asked you to omit any semblance of minions from the game or special items, leaving only the goal of traveling to a boss to guide you. Yet Team Ico performed this seemingly ridiculous task back in 2005 with a title called Shadow of the Colossus. Moreover, the game is considered one of the best games of all time and has developed a cult following. Is the praise that the game receives well-founded, or is this one game that should remain in the shadows? In the Forbidden Land, there is a great temple which stands sentinel over the large peninsula that expands around it. Within the temple, a great spirit named Dorman rests, entrapped by a group of 16 massive creatures called Colossi. A young man named Wander has tirelessly ridden to the temple, the interest of bargaining with Dorman in mind. The adventurer travels with the body of a girl named Mono, that he knows and who he believes was wrongly sacrificed. Wander is willing to wager his own life to try and return the girl's soul to her body, a miracle that Dorman can perform but requires 16 favors. The entity known as Dorman suggests that Wander go and destroy the colossi that bind him to the temple, as only the adventurer with his magical sword can harm the humongous beasts. Together with his horse, Agro, Wander looks to be the protagonist of a game like The Legend of Zelda. However, while the game has an adventurous style, its focus falls more within the puzzle genre than one revolving around action. There are no minions throughout the game. The only enemies that you face are the 16 colossi, who are usually beyond massive. Besides the individual fights with the huge beasts of stone, nothing breaks down the pacing of the game except for the long drawn-out travel sequences. While this can be taxing to some players, it was intentionally planned to give the game a feeling of isolated hopelessness. That lonely feeling extends to the Colossus fights. Except for Agro, Wander has no allies on which to rely, instead needing to utilize his mind as best he can to find a way to topple his much larger opponents. As said before, the game is primarily a puzzle game. The idea is that you need to find the enemy's weak point, but, more importantly, you have to figure out how to reach it. It ends up being no small feat in a game with such a massive concept. Besides the Colossi though, Wander will have to fight with a difficult camera and a horse that reacts with a sense of realism that might have players at odds with the game. While Shadow of the Colossus is not the most beautiful game to come out for the PlayStation 2, it certainly has its merits. For one, realism has a huge stake in the title. Not in so much the concept of mighty creatures who could squash you like an ant, but in the physics and reactions of all the creatures within the game. Agro will sometimes refuse to heed your commands, but it isn't so bad that it'll break the game. The Colossi will shake and gyrate when you grasp upon them, doing whatever they can to throw you off. Meanwhile, Wander will flop about on the large opponents in a very realistic manner. The sound is perhaps one of the game's greatest achievements. Besides a fictional language which can't really be understood, everything has a wonderful feel to it, even the morose and foreboding music that can lead up to the encounters. The epic music that plays when you finally begin to ascend the creatures is some of the best in gaming to this day. Because of the puzzle nature of Shadow of the Colossus, nothing much will change when you attempt to topple the creatures in a second playthrough. However, in this regard, the game actually benefits from a short length. The 16 enemies can be beaten in around 8 hours. Luckily, Shadow of the Colossus manages to extend its viability with the inclusion of time trials, which task you with beating the Colossi in an extremely quick amount of time. In addition to bragging rights, players are rewarded with some interesting modifications that can affect the game in some ways. Team Ico is now known for making games with a unique premise and concept, and Shadow of the Colossus clearly shows that. While some people will not buy into the only 16 enemies total mentality of the game, and probably even less the "my god, this game can be frustrating" puzzle aspect, those who play and enjoy the title will likely fondly remember the game forever. The game is definitely one of those rare gems that you don't see very often. That's Entertainment awards Shadow of the Colossus a score of 8.5 out of 10.